At least one person has died, two injured in Kyiv, Ukraine this morning after Russia launched more than 30 missiles at the capital. That is an air raid alert. It remains in place over the city. Moscow's latest attack has forced many residents to seek shelter in the underground metro system. Just look at that. I remember those images from the beginning of the war. The city's military spokesperson said around 20 of those missiles have been intercepted and destroyed. And these attacks come less than 24 hours after the United States and Germany announced they will send those battle tanks to Ukraine, a sign potentially to Putin that the allies may not be concerned about provoking Russia.
The decision you saw today by both Germany and the United States was several weeks in the making through many discussions with the Germans and with our allies and partners. And it's about coordination. It's about the unity here and the resolve that we all have together to help support Ukraine.
The Russian embassy in Berlin said this, quote, is extremely dangerous decision. It takes the conflict to a new level of confrontation. It contradicts the statements of German politicians about their unwillingness to have Germany be drawn into it. Fareed Zakaria, host of Fareed Zakaria GPS on CNN, is with me. It's great to have you. Thank you so much. So what do you think big picture here? Yes, it's a dramatic shift for Germany. But in terms of what it tells us about whether the West really fears Putin at all anymore.
Well, I think this is one of those cases where the official line actually is accurate, that it really is about the unity and resolve of the Western powers. It really is extraordinary if you think about it. If you compare this war with something like Iraq, on which half of Europe was in violent opposition to the United States' strategy, here you have basically the entire Western world, plus a lot of non-Western countries that have banded together. And they're ratcheting up as the Russians ratchet up because Putin has fundamentally decided he can't beat the Ukrainian army, so he's going to try to defeat the Ukrainian nation. Those air raid sirens you were talking about, this is indiscriminate bombing into a civilian parts of the city. Kyiv is not, I was there in September. It's not a military city. It doesn't have huge military bases. He's just killing civilians. And so in order to do something to break what is, what appears to be a somewhat congealed stalemate on the front lines, the Western countries are trying to ask themselves, how can they move forward? I think it's a really remarkable display of the fact that you have, with all the problems created by Putin's invasion, oil crisis, energy crisis, the West is united.
You just interviewed Volodymyr Zelensky in Davos, and I thought it was interesting that he just told Sky News in a new interview that he is not interested. That's a quote in meeting with Putin. And then he went on to say Putin is a nobody. This sort of reflects the sentiment you got from him as well.
Yeah, and I think he in some ways is reflecting the sentiment in Ukraine. I've noticed a very interesting change with Zelensky over the last year or two. At the start of the war, when I would ask him about whether or not there was room for negotiation, his answer was always yes. His answer was, look, there's a way around this. There are formulas we can come up with. We can describe the areas that Russia occupies as frozen. We will never accept their legitimacy, but we move on. And then came the brutality of the Russian offensive, the attacks on civilians, the war crimes, Bucha, all that.
Yes.
And I think it has turned the country. It has turned Ukraine. One thing it's done is it's really created a sense of Ukrainian nationalism far stronger than anything I'd seen. But it's also created an absolute determination that they are not going to surrender. Yeah. They're going to see this through to the end.
It is just so fascinating, isn't it, to see the evolution of his leadership that so many questioned when he got elected, right? And look what he has become.
Look, the guy was a comic and
yes.
a producer, and it turned out that, and we never know this about leaders, that when confronted with a crisis, he had the one thing that perhaps you need above all else in a great leader, which is courage.
Courage.
If he had not had the courage that first day to say, I don't need a ride, I need ammo.
Yes.
And if he had run, the whole history of this war would be completely different.
I loved your op-ed this weekend, sort of your takeaway from the World Economic Forum in Davos as it pertains to sort of what will lead the world. And it's not just the United States. You say there are encouraging signs that we are actually witnessing is a new kind of order built on unity and cooperation of the world's free nations. And that just got accelerated, did it not, with the U.S. and Germany coming together in this move this week?
I'm so glad you noticed that. because what does this latest tank business show us? The Germans were very concerned about not wanting to be out in front on this kind of thing. And by the way, we should all be very grateful that the Germans are concerned about not seeming too militaristic,
course,
right?
given the
There's a history that they are very conscious of and sensitive to. So they say to the Americans, if you want us to do this, you've got to be in lockstep with us. And so the Americans really largely simply to accede to that German request agree to send the Abrams tank. So it's a case of genuine cooperative democratic leadership. This is not Iraq. This is not the United States saying it's my way or the highway. So, people are being forced along. It's really consensus building, which is what we have to hope is going to happen in the future, because the U.S. ain't going to bear the burden alone anymore.
It can't.
And it does seem like there's a kind of new democratic leadership coming about.
I was happy to read about your optimism after being with all of those leaders. Fareed, thank you very much. Of course, we'll be watching, as we always do, on Sunday. Thank you.